Hey friends. So, a couple interesting conversations and experiences recently have shown something. They've shown something I already know. It's always fun when something you already know is illuminated by the universe. Isn't that nice? Like telling you, hey, you already know this. You get it. And but the thing that has been showing up is it's about the nature of ego, and it's about the way the phrase that popped into my head is ego is always the same. And the reason I think that phrase popped into my head, and the reason that has been my kind of insight, again, like an insight that I already knew, is that I've had a couple conversations with various people, and we're the topic or the issue being discussed revolves in a kind of, if you were to kind of essentialize and abstract the essence of the conversation, it revolves around the nature of ego and what ego does to a conversation, what ego does to the work that we're doing, what it does to relationships. And it's always remarkable to me how when I encounter ego, whether it's in myself or in another human being, this is the amazing thing about ego. Ego feels the same in me as it does in other people. And I had the experience recently of speaking to someone who had recently had a kind of significant, powerful interaction with another person. And my experience in speaking to the person that I was in contact with, there was a sense of like encroachment or scarcity. It's hard to describe, but it was a kind of extractive feeling. And then within a day or so, I had another conversation with this person, and they had registered what was happening in this other relationship they talked about, and it reflected exactly what I had experienced. So in other words, their experience of being in dialogue with someone who was kind of maybe pretty, riddled with ego, transmitted through them into me to where I could feel it. And then the person I was in contact with ended up kind of registering it for themselves and being able to see, oh, this is what was happening here. Whereas in the first conversation, that wasn't really apparent yet. And that whole exchange reflected something for me, which I've also experienced in a couple of other of my own interactions and relationships, totally separate from this one. And so this is where the sensation's coming from, and the sort of marvelous insight that ego's always the same. And that's why it's so boring. That's why ego just kind of sucks. It's like it closes the door to the juiciness of life, to allowing energy. And I was watching a video by Sadhguru this morning because I've been doing an exercise in my morning routine that pretty much I saw a Sadhguru video where he talked about keeping the spine flexible and activating the spine every morning, and doing a deep, close-footed squat every morning, a series of them. And I was like, that sounds great. And I started trying it, and I loved it. And so it's part of my routine now. I do it every single day. And he was talking about the spine as a receptive device, as an antenna, basically. Perception happens. We have these senses, and that's where some of the information enters, but our spine is also a sense organ. Don't quote me on this, I'm not a doctor, but the spine is a sense organ. It has perceptive capacities that go way beyond just being like a construction pillar for the rest of the body to just hang on. And I've spoken, even in the last couple days, couple weeks, I've had a couple of times, I've had this sensation of my spine sort of like lighting up with some kind of energy, some kind of inpouring of energy, information. And ego, because ego is mind created, it's like it shuts that down. It shuts down that deeper perception. It contracts our attention onto this tiny little sphere of whatever our ego is fixated with. And that's probably different for every person, which makes it all the more remarkable that the felt sense of ego and the kind of what it feels like to be in contact with it, again, not trying to say, when it happens to us, we're as much in touch with it, and probably more so in touch with the kind of palpable texture and felt sense of ego. But whether it's in us or somebody else, it takes us to this tiny little area of focus where, for whatever reason, for our own, historical baggage reasons, this feels like my identity. This is the most important thing in the world, because if I lose this, then I won't be me anymore. And it's like that. That's my ego's voice. So that it shuts down the rest of the system. It closes down everything else. So that feeling of like my whole system being here, being available, feeling that nourishment of the entire universe pouring into me, into this tiny little body, has to go away. Because I'm attached to this. And I'm not going to let go. It's insane. But ego's always the same. Ego's always the same. That's what has kind of, you probably already knew this, but it's worth, for me at least, it's worth reminding myself, because what it also tells us when we kind of recognize that is that if we want to perceive, then we can. If we want to notice when we are caught in ego, or when someone else is caught in ego, or a relationship is caught in ego, then we can, because there's a very, very pronounced and pretty obvious felt sense that is the case. It's not real hard to pick up on if we're actually willing to look for it, if we're willing to perceive it, if we're willing to because it's like, how could it, if we live in a reality where our spine has access to the infinite energy of the cosmos at all times, literally all times, what could be more obvious than that stopping and getting really fixated on something small? Nothing could be more obvious than that. It's like, it'd be like having a electronic device that's running and pulling the power cord out of the wall. Would you not notice that the vacuum cleaner stopped running? Of course you would notice. You know, it's that level of energetic shift that has to take place when we go into ego. And again, it's just kind of like, I find it borderline inspiring to make that observation and sort of challenge myself, or like, and not just really kind of hold it out there in front of myself as something to really to understand that these perceptions are accurate. These perceptions are real. I really do have the capacity to feel this level of clarity and definitiveness with regard to where my energy is, what my state is, where my attention is going. And once I admit that, it makes me less likely to hide. It makes me less likely to go into ego, but pretend that I'm actually not in ego. I just don't want to let go of this. I guess I think of Gollum with the ring, with my precious. Don't take away my precious. That's the body language of ego. Anyway, thanks for watching, folks. Much love. Have a wonderful Friday. I appreciate you, and I will see you very soon.